Okay, welcome back. In this video module, I'm going to talk to you about how to create a database. Okay, how to create a database using the SQL Server Management Studio and how to create a database using the SQL script. Firstly, let me talk to you about a database. A database, when you are creating it, at least has one data file which has an extension of MDF, and it will also have one log file which will have an extension of LDF file. Oh, no, no, the LDF extension. Okay, these are the standard extension, but they are not mandatory. Okay, you can change the name of the extension if you want, but it is recommended to not to change the extension name. Otherwise, you may yourself get confused. Now, let's talk about transaction log first. Usually, in a database, extents are allocated. Okay, what are extents? I will explain it to you later. It is space. Okay, let me explain to you first extent. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand what it is. In a database, when the space is allocated, it is allocated in either in a page, okay, or extent. Now let me explain to you. A page is a fixed length of 8 KB block. Okay, that is 8 kilobytes, and extent is 8 contiguous pages. That is 8 by 8 equals to 64 KB. Now let's go and return to the I will explain you that about the transaction log. Okay. Now in the transaction log, extents are not allocated to the transaction log. Transaction log are sequential files made up of virtual log files. So virtual log files are truncation units, meaning that the space can be used for new transaction is no longer being used. Okay. Now the minimum virtual log file size is 250 KB, and the minimum there are 2 virtual log files per log file, so that makes it 512 KB. Now in a database there will always exist one primary file group that will contain the startup information of the database. You may add other secondary file groups to it, and there would be always a log file also. Now file groups are useful for grouping the files logically. Administration, okay, your backup becomes easier. You can back up for one file by file. Okay, these file groups are used for a very large database. Okay, transaction logs are not placed in the file groups. So let's create a database. Let's start with creating a database. New database. Okay, there we are. It is showing us the logical name of there is a primary. This is MDF file name. Okay, if I give a name here to the database, maybe I'll give it as a sample. And you can see here that a log file name has been added. The sample becomes the logical name. I can name the file if I want. Okay, I can say sample dat, sample dat, so there is a database file, and I can say write it as a sample log. I can click OK. Default is the default user, the owner who is creating this thing. Okay, there are options here. Auto close, auto create static, auto shrink data, okay, and so on and so forth. Just go and database read only, false, and etc etc etc. And then there is a file groups. Okay, it will explain. We will go into the file groups later, and I will just go to the journal page, and I am going to click OK, and this database is going to get created. Okay, the sample database has been created and has been added to the lost in the databases. So far so good. Okay, now I am not going to talk about the storage limits, because the storage limits keeps on changing with the SQL server depending upon from one version to other version. So there is no actually fixed. In 2000 it was something, in 2005 it would be different, and 2008 and so on, because it keeps on upgrading. So okay, now suppose if I wanted to check the any space used by any table. How do I check the table, this thing, the space used by a table? So I can use a stored procedure that is known as sp space used and the table name. Now suppose if I wanted to check in the pubs database what was the space used by the title tables. Okay, so I can use and give this command. Okay, it says use pubs go sp space use titles and go. Okay, what happens is it will list me the space used by the table name. Okay, so far so good. Okay, now suppose if I wanted to create a database payroll on a E drive under the payroll folder. Okay, this is how actually I am going to use the script to create a database. This folder already exists. If you want to create it under the folder should exist. Now I am going to create a database for payroll, and I am going to execute this statement, and you can see that the database is going to get created. Okay, the first name, this is a script. Previously I have showed you how to do it with the SQL Server Management Studio graphical user interface. So this is how the database gets created. And the database has got created, but it doesn't show up. I will have to refresh the database, go to the database and select refresh, and then it will list the database. Okay, there it is. The payroll has come up. Okay, now this was a very simple. There was one name that is in the syntax it has mentioned that a name is a payroll.dat is a name of the file, and the file actually will exist in the folder, and it will the database file would be known as the payroll mdf, and the log on means it is a log file. Okay, name equals to payroll log. Okay, that is how it is referenced from the database, but the file name actually exists as a payroll.ldf under the folder payroll. Now let's go and create one more database. This time I am going to use it with some parameters. Okay, now the previous database was created with the default whatever it was. Okay, leaving it whatever the default syntax provides without giving any maximum size and other things. Okay, this time I am going to create it with my own size and other things, growth size of the file. Okay, this is the human resource database I am going to create. Okay, the name already I have told you what it is and other things. Here the new thing is the size is equals to 4 MB. That is the initial size of the database. The max size would be 400 MB, and the file growth is 20%. Okay, 20% whatever it is actually comes of 400 MB, whatever it is going to be 20%, will keep on increasing. And then there is a name equals to human, that's the log file. The size is equals to 2 MB, max size is equals to 100 MB, and the file growth is 2 MB. Now what is actually happening is that in the database file I have said by growth by 20%. In the file actually growth in the transaction log I have said by 2 MB. You can use either of the syntax, it works perfectly. Need not actually say it by the percentage wise in both the things, or you can use the percentage in both and the MBs in the both, no problem, works perfectly fine with both the syntax. I am going to execute the statement, and then I have executed the statement, and the database has to be refreshed to see whether the human resource database has arrived. The human resource database is existing. Okay, now let's go and create one more database. This time I am going to create a database with multiple data files and multiple log files. Up till now I have actually created a database with a single database file and a single log file. Okay, this is a different example, creating a multiple data file database. Okay, nothing but actually adding one more to the name in the database file and one more to the log file, and that's it, and you are going to get it correctly. Okay, use the master, create database, nothing, seeing the syntax, there is no actually complications here, just one more file name being added and giving the same name, and I am going to execute the statement here, and the database is going to get created. I have created the database and I actually refreshed it. There is the listing system. Okay, now one more database we are going to try, creating one more database that is about the creating database using file groups. So far we have used actually only the database without file groups. Okay, here it is. Okay, now here the only difference is there is a name and there is a file group with fg2 existing. Okay, and then there is a, I already told you the transaction log cannot be a part of the file group. Remember that thing. Okay, create database brokers on the primary and so on and so forth, and file group fg2 name, again the same thing. There is nothing friends except the name, the file group fg2. Okay, that's it, and I'm going to execute this statement and let's see the database is getting created. Okay, and there it is, the data has been created, the broker. Okay, this is the database. Okay, I have a database known as demo, which has a single MDF file and a single LDF file. Okay, let's go and see the properties. Okay, that's the only way you can see the database files. There is no other option available here. You can modify also from this side only. The file option, click the file option. Now as you can see, there are many of the files that has been actually already been created. I am going to delete one of the two files and show it to you how to add it. This is going to be deleted. Okay, I am going to say remove, and I am going to also say remove the log file. So already actually I created it, so I have to remove it, and I am going to say OK. Database already exists with the only one MDF and one LDF. Now suppose if I wanted to add one MBF and one LDF, I wanted to add one more file to the database and one more log file to the demo database. Okay, here is what I do. Okay, this is the alter syntax. Here I go and execute this syntax. It says alter database demo, add file. Okay, and this will add a NDF file. Remember, there is only one MDF file, master file. The other, all the files that are data files are NDF with the extension NDF. You can rename the extension, not advisable. A statement has got executed. Again, I am going to add a log file to it also, and I am going to execute this statement as well. And I am going to say execute a statement, and the statement gets executed. And there we are.